week 11 of the fantasy baseball season, and he has a few hitters falling this week. The first guy's Mookie Betts of the Los Angeles Dodgers. So far this season, Mookie Betts, he's been a disappointment for fantasy owners who drafted him obviously in the early first round, anywhere from picks 2 to 5 usually. I saw him going this season in the draft. So on the season for Betts, only 8 home runs, 25 RBIs, 40 runs scored, 6 stolen bases, a 253 batting average, and a 368 on base. So right now, he's not executing. He's not hitting the baseball well, and he's just not hitting home runs either. Is Betts in the last couple weeks for him? 3 home runs, 5 RBIs, 11 runs scored, a stolen base, a 213 batting average, and a 327 on base. So right here, the only good thing going for Betts right now is his on base to batting average ratio. Everything else is mediocre to poor numbers, where you can find these type of numbers on the waiver wire. Obviously, he's a great player. Obviously, he's an all-star and a guy who put the Dodgers over the top to win the title last season. But right now, Mookie Betts, he's just not contributing, and he's falling quickly right now. The last few games for him, June 11th versus Texas, 0 for 3 with 2 runs. June 12th, 0 for 3 versus Texas. June 13th versus Texas, 2 for 3 with a homer and 3 runs scored. June 14th versus Philly, 0 for 3. June 15th versus Philly, 3 for 5 with a homer and 2 RBIs. And June 16th at Philly, 0 for 4. So we've seen a few signs out of Betts that maybe he could get things going. But right now, he's not being consistent. His batting average is down. The power is down. And right now, he's a hitter falling down this week. The next hitter is Anthony Rizzo of the Chicago Cubs. So Anthony Rizzo in a contract season as well. Him, Baez, and Chris Bryant here going into the offseason. And Anthony Rizzo this season, it's been a mixed bag of results. 9 home runs, 31 RBIs, 29 runs scored, 4 stolen bases, a 255 batting average, which is pretty good to his standards, the way he's been hitting the last few seasons, and a 345 on base in the last couple weeks here for Rizzo. He's still got 4 homers, 10 RBIs, 7 runs scored, but only a 204 batting average and a 250 on base. So right now it's pretty much a home run or nothing for Rizzo with a low batting average, a high strikeout rate, and a player not really putting the ball in play much or doing much right now is Rizzo. And he's been tough to own the last couple weeks here in fantasy in the last few games for him. June 12th versus St. Louis, 0 for 2 with an RBI. June 13th versus St. Louis, 1 for 4 with a ribby. June 14th at the Mets, 1 for 4 with a homer. June 15th at the Mets, 0 for 4. June 16th at the Mets, 1 for 4 with a homer. And June 17th at the Mets, 0 for 4. So right now, like I mentioned, it's a home run and nothing for Rizzo. And this Cub team as a whole right now, I feel like their offense has been slumping over the last few weeks. And obviously, Rizzo, he's in the middle of that. So right now, I think he could still get things going. He'll still bounce back. And his power numbers will still be there for me. But right now, as far as going down the rankings this week, he's definitely fallen. The next hitter is Gleyber Torres of the New York Yankees. So Torres, he was one of the best prospects in all of Major League Baseball 4 or 5 seasons ago. But the last couple of years here, it just hasn't been anything to look forward to or great here at all for Torres. On the season this year, only 3 home runs, 23 RBIs, 4 stolen bases, 22 runs scored, a 260 batting average, and a 342 on base. So right now, Gleyber Torres, he's not giving fantasy owners anything to look forward to or confident that he'll break out of this season-long slump. Well, really a 2-season-long slump. Last season, the numbers were way down as well for Torres in the last couple weeks for him. 1 homer, 4 RBIs, a stolen base, 5 runs scored, a 256 batting average, and a 313 on base. And right now, he's banged up with a little bit of a stiff back, is Torres. And owners, they're getting frustrated with him. He's not contributing, and he's only got 1 hit as Torres now in his last 5 games, so he's in a mighty slump. The last few games for him, June 12th at Philly, 0 for 5. June 13th at Philly, 1 for 4. June 15th at Toronto, 0 for 4. June 16th at Toronto, 0 for 3. And June 17th at Toronto, 0 for 2. So right now, he's not putting the bat on the ball. He's not even driving the ball and getting hard outs. It's just a lot of slow rollers and ground outs and striking out here for Torres. So right now, he's been in a season-long funk. And each and every week, he's just a hitter that's been falling is Juan Soto of the Washington Nationals. So Juan Soto, like Mookie Betts, he was a top 5, top 10 pick in most fantasy drafts coming into the season. And so far this season, it's been a mediocre to poor season according to Soto standards, in my opinion. 8 homers, 28 RBIs, 35 runs scored, a stolen base, a 266 batting average, and a 393 on base percentage. In the last couple weeks for him, 2 homers, 6 RBIs, 7 runs scored, a 214 batting average, and a 327 on base. So early in the week I mentioned Juan Soto is a buy low candidate because this kid, he's too talented of a ball player to be hitting in the 260s, and for him not to show more power with only 8 home runs so far this season for Soto in 188 at-bats. So I think the power is going to come along. I think he's going to get going, and right now he's got a lot of games coming up with the New York Mets this weekend here with 4 games coming up. So I think Soto could get right. He's a Met killer, and this guy, he's due to break out with the weather getting nicer and the ball's going to start carrying. I think he's going to get going, and he's a player falling right now, but I don't think he's going to be falling for much longer. So the last few games for Soto, he's just been in a tailspin. June 11th versus San Francisco, 0-for-3. June 12th versus San Francisco, 0-for-4 with a run. June 13th versus San Francisco, 1-for-4. June 14th versus Pittsburgh, 1-for-4 with an RBI. June 15th versus Pittsburgh, 1-for-4 with a run. And June 16th versus Pittsburgh, 1-for-4 with a run. So right here, Juan Soto, he's not been playing good at all, but this national team now have won 5 in a row. And they got, like I mentioned, a matchup versus the New York Mets where Juan Soto really could get things going. So Juan Soto, like I said, now he's got a 4-game set versus the New York Mets. Well, obviously, he's hit well in his career, and it looks like Jacob deGrom won't be pitching in this series as well, as he's banged up with arm tightness. So right now, Juan Soto, this could be the week he breaks out, but as of now, he's falling, and the 5th and final hitter falling. Speaking of the New York Mets, is New York Mets hitter Dom Smith. So Dom Smith, it's been a tough season for him so far this year. And last season, I think him playing a lot of DH definitely helped him out, because now he's a left fielder for the Mets, and obviously he's not a great fielder, and that definitely could be affecting his batting. Well, last season was just a fluke year, and so far this season for Smith, 6 home runs, 24 RBIs, 19 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, 244 batting average, and a 319 on base percentage. In the last couple weeks here for Smith, he just cannot hit the baseball. 3 home runs though, 5 RBIs, 6 runs scored, a stolen base, a 179 batting average, and a 304 on base. So just like Rizzo, who I mentioned earlier in the video, right now it's a home run and nothing for Dom Smith over the last couple weeks. I know he's drawn a couple walks here and there, but this guy, he was a recommended drop early in the week in fantasy baseball, and right now he's just not doing anything. Like I mentioned, it's good to see he hit a couple home runs this week, but right now he's slumping. This Met team, they're not hitting the baseball, but they're still winning ball games. Low scoring, 3-2 ball games, 2-0 games. So they're really not doing much here offensively. In the last few games for Smith, June 12th versus San Diego, 0-for-4 with an RBI. June 13th versus the Padres, 0-for-4 with a run. June 14th versus the Cubs, 2-for-3 with a homer and 2 runs. June 15th versus the Cubs, 1-for-3 with a run. June 16th versus the Cubs, 1-for-3 with a homer and 2 RBIs. And June 17th versus Chicago, 0-for-2. So right here, like I mentioned, it's a home run and nothing. At least Smith, he had a 3-game hitting streak before the Cub game the other night here. But right now, he's just a guy I can't trust, and he's a guy falling down the rankings. He definitely could turn things around, but I just don't see it right now. So that's a few hitters falling down the rankings here in Week 11 of the fantasy baseball season.